depending on where I am and what I talk about, I'll focus on different things. To be at Bristol Myers Squibb on Veterans Day, I'm going to focus a lot on my time in the VA hospital, surrounded by veterans. And that the one reason that I'm standing in front of you was because of a pharmaceutical interruption of a manic episode they didn't think they could break. Whether people think that you can just take a drug and give it to B person and things work, or they don't, there's a fallacy to that thought process due to the biochemistry of the people that take them. And when I ended up back in my second maximum security hospital, my self-definition as somebody with a mental illness, my self-definition as a failed veteran. You see, when I was a veteran and I felt that I was part of something greater, I felt a common strength. It's actually a strength I feel here when I walk into your organization. It's a strength that I feel as a citizen of New Jersey. People that work at Squibb have faith in their company. Everybody who works here, I didn't know what BMS meant. Everybody was talking about, oh, I work at BMS. I have no idea. I thought that was something like a bowel movement issue. I didn't know what it meant. And I didn't understand everybody was so proud of it. Even my friends that had worked here and moved on considered their best times occupationally were here, even on this campus, working for an organization that's ever evolving, working for an organization that may have an identity, but the identity is fluid, much like medications and their application are. Companies have an ethos the same way an individual does. It's in the fluidity of that ethos that you are successful and adaptive. It's in the concreteness of that ethos that you will fail in an evolving world. As a veteran, you will learn to lean on another person, learn to lean on the collective strength, in my case, of my ship, the USS Briscoe DD-977, as we steamed out of Norfolk, Virginia to head over to the Red Sea to be part of Operation Desert Shield and part of the International Maritime Interdiction Force. You knew what you were fighting for. You identified and understood your personality. You had a designation on your arm that told you your rank. You had a rating that let people know what you did. But you were a sailor. You were part of a team. Your collective consciousness would move forward for a greater good. Now, when I stood on the bow of my ship, going across the North Atlantic into a war zone, I felt that disconnection of a self that could now become a man, the same way the great poet Hart Crane did. They called him the 20th century Walt Whitman. And he would sit on the back of the boat and he would watch as the waves came up. And he would lose his identity into the all-ever-present ocean. The difference at that time is, as a sailor and a fighting man, I withheld that part of me that I needed to operate in the day. Hart Crane actually suffered from a mental illness and threw himself eventually into the ocean. It was in the VA hospital, it was in this manic episode, my second manic episode, that I would enter into that ocean, where mania would become all-encompassing, where I would lose the battle of my life, where nurses, doctors, pharmaceuticals, patients, other people with mental illness tried to help me. For on the sickest ward in the VA, a ward where there is no other place to go, a ward that my stepfather delivered me to by hand, to assure that I would not die on the streets of New Jersey like my predecessor, that I succumbed completely and totally to bipolar disorder. I've been strapped down in restraints from 5 hours to 10 hours to 27 hours in 4-point restraints. I've screamed into the night, begging for forgiveness and solace, asking anyone to save me. And eventually, in that same night, in a breach to lucidity, from the cement locker of my mania, I begged for my death. I screamed out into the anonymous halls for someone to kill me. That this life I just can't come back from this life. And I fully succumbed to the death and the pain that my father must have felt, that I'm sure he hoped I would never feel. And I put my head back down in the restraints. I cried for a life I didn't understand anymore. Nothing had worked to break my manic episode. Due to the fact that currently most of the hospitals in New Jersey, whether they're state hospitals or private hospitals, do not have the electronic vernacular to go back and forth and let people know what has worked prior. I was kept on a medication, Thorazine, that may have worked for others, but did not work with my biochemistry. The idea, I guess, being hit him with the heavy guns. If this doesn't work, so be it. And I cycled in that episode for 4 months. I have 10 surgically repaired toes. That's how I got out of the Navy, a disabled veteran, due to a service-aggravated injury. Due to the fact that they shattered a broken screw across my left big toe and they severed a tendon in my left little toe, I cannot walk without shoes. Currently, as I stand here, I'm like the Iron Man with the amount of things I have from the ankle down to keep me standing up. In the hospital, that meant when I lost my shoes, I first could walk for a day or two, then I could hobble, then I could crawl, and then I would just lie on the ground. Blind inwardly, blind outwardly. I was viscerally deaf, dumb, and blind. There was no conduit from myself to the world and from the world to me. Due to the fact of heavy medication that you need as they're trying to break my episodes, my body became more of an outfit than an organism. My hands were held down to my side for days. Therefore, your hands start to swell. The heavy medications, the dry air, the food, eventually your body becomes a ghost. And you're whispering to it to exist. Your muscles and your skin feel like vinyl. And you look left and right at other domestic POWs. And you see no way out. I wore the uniform of the day of the chronically and hopelessly mentally ill. My skin was scratched due to the fact that my nails, of course, are not maintained. And my skin being so dry due to the circulated air, you scratch at yourself incessantly until you bleed. You're so far into yourself that even though your gums are caked with what you have on your teeth, that your blood does not taste as if it's your own. You are dead. And when they strap me in that bed, for the right reasons, I don't advocate against anyone. I advocate for recovery. I advocate for success. And I advocate for the cessation of suffering associated with all those that come in contact with mental health. Whether it be the consumer, the family member, the police officer, the researcher, the doctor. Being that I'm standing in one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, the reason that I'm talking in depth about where I came from is for you to understand what you're asking me to do when I'm supposed to take a medication to succeed in my life. The unique thing about medications associated with mental illness is that they are the same medications oftentimes that you were given while you were in the hospital. And if they were not the same, you identify the idea of medications with being in the hospital. There is no other population that's treatment leads them into maximum security hospitals.